Okay, so imposter syndrome is the feeling that you're a fraud, the feeling that you're making it all up, and the feeling that you're going to be found out. You feel like you don't know what you're doing and people are going to find out and they're going to kick you out.
Brandon, do you define this in a different way? Is this was what she described exactly how you felt?
So I didn't even know what imposter syndrome was. I just knew I had it. I felt like a fraud. When Amber and I started working together back in 2019, I was having a monumental year. It was a life-changing year, life-changing income. I was top rep in the organization, 2018 MVP, selling into really large deals and winning those deals. But I felt like something was going to break. Like I was going to be found out. Here I was trying to advise Fortune 50 level, C-level executives on how to transform their customer experience. And I didn't even have a college degree. They're accustomed to talking with, Harvard MBA, Deloitte, Accenture, McKinsey consultants, and I'm in this smallish technology company trying to tell them what to do. So I was like, whoa, I need help. Like they're going to figure me out. I'm going to get booted out of here, lose my career, lose my job. This is game over, all over. It wasn't really until I got a breath of fresh air by working with Amber that I could reframe this and even define what I was feeling.
Level of relief there. Morgan, you've had quite the journey. I know, because you and I talk a lot, that we both have felt this level of imposter syndrome as we've grown in our path. So, you weren't even aiming for this career. You had a totally different career in mind when you started off.
Yeah. So, most people know, if you don't, I wanted to be a sports agent originally. So I did double major in finance and sports management. And also as well, I saw Jerry Maguire. So I was like, oh, that could be me, right? Like I can do that.
Who's coming with me?
Yeah. I was like, this is simple, right?
Show
me the money, right? Like I got this. So yeah, I spent all my entire college career trying to figure that out. It didn't end up panning out, went into sales, started creating content, all these different things. And I think there's levels to imposter syndrome as well. I've faced it at different components. Like when I first started creating content, I was an SDR creating content. There's a lot of people that would tell you that like you weren't qualified to post content on LinkedIn, but at the same time, you can post whatever you want, right? Like there's actually no laws against it. But yeah, I definitely felt a level of that because as I continuously posted, Brandon, just like you talked about, I had teams reaching out to me like, how do I scale my team to 100 reps? And I'm like, I don't know. How do I get 100 meetings? Like I don't want to scale your team to 100 reps. Like I'm just posting content. So I've definitely felt it along the way. And you feel like you have to have certain accolades and credentials in order to do something. But if you are doing something and you're doing it well, you have to accept that. So I had a lot of imposter syndrome to like basically overcome that on each phase. But that's just like a component of that journey that I've been on.
So the reason that you feel imposter syndrome is because you're in a growth phase. I experienced so much imposter syndrome. There's two characteristics that will qualify you will be the breeding ground for imposter syndrome. One, you feel like the odd person out. So for Brandon, it was that he didn't have a college degree. For Morgan, it was probably that you were like, I'm not a salesperson, I'm a sports agent person, this isn't my background. And I'm like making all of this up. So in some way you feel like the odd person out. For me, it was that I grew up in poverty and I was homeschooled. And then I found myself in these fast growing tech startups. And I was like, people are going to know that I'm not supposed to be here. Like I'm surrounded by incredibly smart people and they're going to find out that I'm not supposed to be here. So you feel like the odd one out for some reason. And then secondly, the reason you feel like an imposter is because you felt success. You've achieved your next level of success. So whether that's a BDR and you're scheduling your first meetings, you're in this new growth phase where you've like never done this before, or you're an AE and you just moved to enterprise and you're in a new growth phase because you've never done this sales motion before. I love to reframe imposter syndrome as not like, I think what we all make it mean is that we're not good enough and there's something wrong with us. And what I think of it as is it's a sign of success. You literally would not feel it if you were complacent in your job and weren't growing. You only feel it when you're growing. And the reason you feel it is because you've never done that thing before. But I love to tell people, look back at times when you were doing something new and you felt like an imposter, and now you don't feel like an imposter anymore. So when Morgan goes out and creates content, he doesn't feel like, oh, they're going to find out that I'm making this all up. Like, he's done it so many times that it's no longer a big deal. And for those of you who are AEs, like, now when you go out prospecting and cold call, like, your first cold call was terrifying. And now you look at it and you're like, it's no big deal. I can do this in my sleep. That same thing will hold true for any phase of the imposter syndrome. If right now you're feeling like an imposter because you're in enterprise accounts for the first time, you're going to keep doing it, and eventually you won't feel like an imposter. So if you feel like imposter syndrome has been rampant in your career, it's because you've been a massive success and you've grown very quickly.
I'll kick things off because, you know, I've had to go through that myself. So realize, you know, again, I'm coming from the perspective of like an enterprise AE. And if you're going after enterprise, you're going after larger deals. Same applies if it's mid-market, but especially the larger the company, the longer the sales cycle is going to occur. And just like anything, right? Running a business, managing, becoming a content creator, this stuff takes time. So one of the best things to do is stop comparing. That was the number one tactic. Is I turned off like the feeds on Slack of like the leaderboard updates every day, the emails that came in every Monday. I just stopped looking at the leaderboard, because if I started comparing myself, then with others who were on top of the leaderboard, who like had the activity metrics, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, I'm not succeeding. Then I'm going to then start doing things and managing my business not in the right way that I know how. So by sort of turning off the comparison syndrome, I don't lead myself into the imposter syndrome. So that's like, that was helpful tip number one, is just stay consistent with my process that I know works, and it will be my quarter eventually one time. So be okay, embrace it, stop comparing yourself to others, and stay committed to your process. Otherwise, you're going to start falling into a trap of doing things that you normally wouldn't do. And that's just going to further, you know, put you in that downward spiral that you don't want to be in. Well, I think we were talking about that earlier, is like finding that special place in between like the ego, right? And that too much of feeling, downplaying, I got lucky, or I don't deserve this.
Yeah.
You got to find that special place. And I think that comment that you were saying earlier, when you just lead with confidence, that's like that old school sales mentality of it's the tactics. It's like, I got to persuade somebody. That's leading with a seller first, human second tactic of like, I can dominate somebody. It's confidence that I've got to go in, even if I feel like an imposter, nobody can know about it. Right. Versus embracing it and flipping it and saying human first, seller second. That puts you in a different place where it's like, you can truly connect, you can truly listen, you can truly co-create something together with the person on the other side or the team on the other side. So I think it's like, you have to have that humility.
What do you got, Amber?
The difference between, I think some people look at confidence as like a negative, and I think it's because they don't know the difference between confidence and arrogance.
Okay.
So confidence is, well, I'll start with arrogance. Arrogance is a scarcity mindset. Arrogance is there's not enough for everybody, so I've got to take as much as I can. When people are arrogant, they're putting other people down to try to put themselves at the top of the list. Like, if they take more pie, then there's less for me, so I got to take as much pie as I can. Where confidence is that there's enough pie for everybody. It's an abundance mindset. Everybody's awesome, and I'm also awesome. And I think that's what Brandon is touching on here, is confidence is having that humility and knowing that everybody around you is also fantastic and there's enough for everybody. And so I can shine, and I can also help others shine.
Let's do the accolades thing. Morgan, you and I both do this. I think we both inherited this practice from John. Oreo pie. Good answer.
That's a really
good answer. Humble pie. Shout out to Danielle Craig. Humble pie. I see what you did there. So let's talk about the feel good moments. Why do we save these?
Yeah. So I got this from John. And when I first started, he said, you need to create a feel good folder. And I was like, the heck are you talking about? So basically what it is that every time that someone let's say you had a good experience with a client, or if you're posting content, people like your content or whatever that is, you put it inside of a folder. So whenever you feel down, someone mentioned feeling down, whenever you feel down or you feel like, oh, like I'm not good at this, or like, I don't know if I can do it, you could go back on that folder and realize like, no, you can do this because people have already confirmed, right, or expressed that you're good at what you're doing. So yeah, there's tons of things in there now, but I always do look at it from time to time when I'm like, I don't really know what's going on. And I can look at it to reaffirm that where I'm going is in the right direction. So that feel good folder, I encourage everyone to get one of those because it truly does expand that positivity, and allows you to continuously have that confidence moving forward.
For me, it would be looking at your path so far. Is it that you are downplaying your success so far and you've been successful in your career, but now you're having a hard time at in your junction that you're in your new role? Is it that you have not had success? So there was a study that was done about Wall Street analysts, and there's a third party who ranks all the analysts. And they wanted to know, is it nature or nurture? Are people just inherently successful because they're just like successful people? Or is it something to do with the environment that they're in? And so they watched what happened when any one of these top analysts would move to another company. And only about 3% of the analysts stayed at the top of the list when they moved to a different company. And they looked to see what happened with those analysts. And they brought their entire teams with them to the new company. They brought their environment that made them a success to their new company. So I really do think that environment determines more of your success than who you are if you're just an inherently successful person. So if you're finding a string of not success, which I wouldn't call it failures, but if you're finding a string of like agitation and frustration and not getting where you want to go, then it's probably not a good environment for you. And maybe that is a different role, or maybe that's a different company, because every company kind of operates differently. But finding an environment where your natural, unique quirks thrive, I think, is one of the most important things to find.
It's no secret that humans adapt to their environment, but we are also affected by our environment. We are products of our environment. And you want to be, if you want to be successful, you have to find the environment that's enabling you to be successful.
I'm an introvert, from a personality perspective. And early in my career, I felt like the odd one out. I thought the only way to be successful in sales is you've got to be an extrovert. You've got to build those relationships. Deals are won over steak dinners. And that was not something I wanted to do. It wasn't later in my career, like especially when I got into strategic selling, that being an introvert became my strength. And so what I did, and I explain this in my book, 7 Steps to 7 Figures, I took all those personality traits that I needed in sales, and some are already positive and some are neutral and some are perceived as negative. I would take those perceived negative attributes and reframe them. I would write them out. Well, being quiet, how could that be a better thing that helps me to sell? Well, being quiet actually helps me to be a better listener, which we all know is key in sales. So I could repurpose those things, and that gave me power. Again, by just physically writing these things out and seeing them on paper, I could always, it was like imprinting that in my brain. And so that every time I was like, oh, I'm feeling a little timid here, or I don't want to talk. Oh, wait, that's actually a good thing. Now let me actively listen to what these executives have to say about problems within their business, instead of trying to talk over them or think to myself, I've got to come up with the perfect answer.